All right, what's
Uh,
up, everybody? Welcome back to the D.O.G podcast. My name is Drew. As always, I'm with German and OC. And today we can briefly talk about the World Cup, and then towards the end, we'll talk about that ass raping that the Cowboys gave the Vikings.
Jeez, okay.
Yeah, coming
Let's go.
strong today.
Yeah, coming in hot, dude. Um, so yeah, let's go ahead. Let's talk about the first round of games. I mean, the first couple days, nothing really too surprising up until we got Argentina losing to Saudi Arabia, and it's just the onslaught of negative comments online already towards Argentina, which I feel like it's kind of funny how like one thing goes bad for them and it's like the tournament's over, right? It's
hmm
just they still have two more games. They could easily still win the group, right?
I expect them to still win the group. I think,
Hmm.
I think it's more of an impact on Mexico and Poland that Argentina lost than
Hmm.
Argentina itself. I think it really just changes the whole outcome because you're expecting um, to lose to Argentina, right? Mexico and Poland,
Yeah.
and hopefully beat up on Saudi Arabia. But they're now 3 points or 2 points ahead of you, so it's a complete game changer for Mexico and Poland, assuming that Argentina figures it out and takes care of work with Mexico and Poland.
OC, what do you think, man? Why do you think Saudi Arabia were able to beat Argentina?
I mean, I'm just as shocked as everybody else, but I think um, the stuff that I was reading and the stuff that I was looking at, it's like, so Saudi Arabia like shut down their domestic league like before everybody else,
Mm.
and well, either that or they had their whole national team. They've played 6 friendlies within the last like 3 weeks,
So
like leading,
Oh,
everything's
leading.
clicking. They're like
Yeah,
firing on
they're
all
they're,
cylinders.
they're gelling really well.
yeah,
Mm.
because I was reading or I was looking at how many games like each country played coming in, and it was like maybe it was usually like between 2 or 3.
Mm.
These guys had 6 warm up games before the World Cup. Like
Mm.
they were either gelling or clicking or they were trying to find that rhythm, and
Right.
whatever it was, I mean it worked because I mean Argentina did dominate for the most part that first half, but uh, I caught the second half and I was just like completely like dumbfounded at how much like Saudi
Right.
Arabia wanted they were winning 50-50 balls, they were challenging, it was like they didn't even they weren't even phased by the whole name on the shirt or Messi or nothing. It
Mm.
was just like, hey, we're just as good as you guys, if not better, and we're gonna ball out.
Right. And then I'm not sure if you guys watched the game because it was at 2 a.m. and I was asleep because it was 2 a.m. right here in the West Coast.
Yeah.
But I woke up that morning, saw the score, and I checked the highlights right away, and I saw that there was what like 3 or 4 goals disallowed because of VAR and it was offsides. It was pretty clear, right? Like it wasn't
Yeah,
like it was like controversial. Um,
that's what I was going to talk about. That offside trap by Saudi Arabia
right.
was legit.
Hmm. Do you think it was Saudi Arabia being like legit with the offside traps, or is just I mean the Argentina attackers like just waiting on that line, kind of just not holding their water good enough?
I think it could be a little bit of both. There was a couple of times when I did see that last man step up right before the through ball came,
Right.
which is quality offside trap. But then yeah, at the same time, I think these guys from Argentina are getting a little antsy. They're not blowing out a team that they should blow out, so I think they're
Mm.
just trying to force it. But the Saudi goalkeeper had a fucking bomb ass game too. Some of those saves were
Mm.
incredible. So I don't know. I mean, they like OC said, they seemed very, very prepared, and it makes sense that they played so many games before the World Cup.
Right.
They were firing on all cylinders.
And let's talk about what I think is probably the goal of the tournament so far, which is Saudi Arabia's second goal. The way the
Ooh,
guy
banger!
brings down the ball, controls it, opens up, and then just hits it in the top corner. I mean, that was an awesome goal, right? You can't take anything away from him, right?
No, that was legit. All of
Mm.
it, 100% legit. That's a World Cup goal for sure.
Yeah. What do you think, OC?
Yeah, that one was pretty good. I mean, and it puts them ahead, so it has more significance because it was the
Right.
winner.
Uh huh.
So, but I will say the goal today that the the kid from Spain hit, was it Gavi, the
Gabby.
one
Yeah.
off the volley, like, and he became the youngest player since Pele to score in a World Cup.
Right.
So I think
Hmm.
that one's up there too. It was just like a rocket right off of his right foot. So
Right. I
that's the
mean
one
that
that I liked.
so far, yeah, I think they're both good, but I think the Saudi Arabia goal has a little bit more significance. Um, but I mean, with that aside, Argentina's still in good shape, right? Like it's not like it's completely over for them, right?
The best thing that happened to them was that Mexico and Poland tied.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So now they still control their own fate. They just got to win
Mm-hmm.
out, and they'll take care of business.
Let's talk about that game, the Mexico Poland game, and I feel like it was a very winnable game for Mexico. I feel like they almost dominated
They did.
completely the first half, right, and then kind of started shutting down there in the second half, and then the penalty that was awarded with VAR. Do you guys think it was a penalty?
Yeah,
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 no doubt about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You get like 4 or 5 different angles, and none of them look like like he.
Mhm.
It was even in question. Like it looked like he got hit. Like
Yeah. Well, I think
so.
it was more of the jersey pull than anything. But I mean, Lewandowski's got his hands on Herrera's chest, and he like fucking pushes or Moreno's chest and
Yeah,
pushes him right.
but once you see that tug action, like they're gonna
It's
call
over,
that.
huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that's the only thing I feel like that bothered me with that ref for the game. It was just he wasn't like that he was terrible, but I feel like it was just so inconsistent, right? Because there was like calls and fouls that were being called, and then other ones around the other parts of the field that weren't being called. Do you guys agree, or am I just being kind of kind of biased?
No, I think you
Well,
can
I
say
think
that about. Oh, go ahead, Andrew.
I was gonna say about a few different games. I think the refereeing's been a little inconsistent. They
Right.
talked about it a lot in the U.S. England game. There's a lot of inconsistency with the referee,
Mm-hmm.
what he was calling foul, what he wasn't, what he was stopping play for, what he wasn't stopping play for. So I think it's kind of an all around thing.
Mm.
Yeah, you even seen it today with the Belgium game.
Right.
There's a couple calls that were just like, well, they're not gonna review that, like, but you're gonna
Hmm.
call this, like,
Right.
it's just all around. I think there's a lot of inconsistency, but I think that comes with VAR,
Mm-hmm.
because now it's like you don't trust the ref. Now you're gonna trust everybody else in the booth to make the call. So what is it gonna be?
And it feels like it's almost like 100% chance that if it goes to VAR, there's going to be some type of call that's overturned, right, or some type of penalty awarded. Which I feel like that's what we gotten. Like how many penalties have we gotten awarded already for VAR? And we're not even through the first round of games. It's been like three or four, right?
It feels like there's been one at least every day.
Right.
There's
Right.
one today, one yesterday, one for or there's actually 2 yesterday in the Mexico Argentina game. So
Mhm.
one each. So
Mhm.
Messi had one, and then Lewandowski had one,
Right.
and then today Alfonso Davies missed his. So
And he
yeah,
missed
there's been
his,
about
yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
handful of games.
I felt bad for Alfonso Davis. It's like, well, you got to shoot a penalty in the biggest stage of the world and then do it against probably the best goalkeeper in the world right now, right?
I
That
didn't
kind
I
of
didn't feel
sucked.
bad for him.
No, you just
No, no. I got Belgium doing well this year, so
I
no,
mean, they
I
did
had no sympathy.
they did well enough, I guess, to get the win, and
They were outplayed,
right.
but their experience is the reason why they won the game. I mean, you
Yeah.
watch that defending, and anytime that Canada got remotely close to the box, like their defenders were swarming,
Right.
and they were all top class. And then Courtois had a great save, and one of the biggest chances that they had, they took advantage of it with
Right.
Michi.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of tough when Alfonso Davis is your left back and he's probably your main attack, and that's like the one
Mhm.
you're counting on. And I was expecting Jonathan Davis to have a better game, the striker. I know he plays in France and he's been having a good year. I was expecting him to have a better game. He even had a few chances, I think, and kind of just blew them.
They played well, Canada.
Right.
For sure they played well.
Mhm.
They're young, and they had to go up against a team that's been there before.
Yeah.
And so I think that was a little tough for a team that hasn't been in the World Cup
Mhm.
in 30 years, something like that.
Right. Yeah, and let's talk about Guillermo Ochoa making the save and making all the Mexicans proud again.
Dude,
ahead.
Ochoa is a different man when it comes to the World Cup. Every 4 years, Ochoa's like, all right, all of a sudden I'm gonna be the greatest goalkeeper in the world, and just propel all these Mexicans to happiness.
and just flips a switch. But I mean,
Yeah.
let's not take away that his technique to stop Lewandowski's goal, because I feel like Lewandowski got a little too fancy and he was kind of trying to draw Ochoa one way, held it a little bit, and then try to go the opposite way. And Ochoa, I don't know if you guys saw, but he made that right step and then came back to the left. Like I feel
Hmm.
like that was him doing his homework, right?
Yeah, I mean it's his fifth World Cup, right? He'd been there
Yeah.
before, done that. So honestly, I really wasn't too worried when Poland was awarded the penalty. I was like, okay, there's probably like a 40% chance Ochoa saves this.
Damn. I was worried. I thought it was over. I was like, God damn it, Mexico just blew it. What do you think, OC?
It's just wild because if there's one league that I actually like watch is Liga MX, and he'll allow like about some 2 to 3 goals a game because everyone scores like 5 goals a game in that league.
Right. Yeah.
But suddenly, like Andrew says, he gets on this stage and he flips a switch, and it's like he's been there, done that. No, he's not afraid of anybody in this world,
Mm-hmm.
and he'll, like you seen, he took down one of the best strikers in the world with by
Right.
stopping his penalty and kind of probably doing his homework by faking him out at his own fake.
Right. Which I thought that was cool. I felt like that was for sure the experience showing, and I feel also Mexico, when Ochoa plays for Mexico, he obviously has a little bit set of a better set of defenders in front of him, right? Like
Hmm.
he's Hector Moreno, who's been there for a good while now. And you have Edson Alvarez in the middle, and I feel like Poland really didn't have that much of an attack, right? Outside of Lewandowski, they didn't have
Poland's
any.
got one guy.
They didn't have
They got
really
one
much
guy.
chances, right?
No, it
Mm-hmm.
that's why I when we talked about this last week, I wasn't too concerned about Mexico's chances. I am a little concerned now because of how good Saudi looked. Um, but yeah, Poland doesn't really impress me a whole lot, other than they
Mm,
got one guy that is really good at scoring.
right.
Um, so really, I still like Mexico's chances to squeak in. You got to beat
Mm-hmm.
Saudi, and you got to probably tie Argentina. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I, I thought that Mexico should have won that game for sure.
Right. Yeah. So do I. I mean, they had their chances to score, especially early. They could have easily gone up 2-0 at halftime, had they
Hmm.
taken advantage of their opportunities. But now with that group, it kind of seems like it's kind of on the edge now. Depending on what the Saudis end up doing, right? Like, will they have
Yeah.
they went up early. They took the 3 point lead on everybody.
Hmm.
Do you think them trying to squeeze out maybe a couple of draws or at least one more draw might be be enough for them to go into the next round?
It's gonna be really close because you look at Mexico and Poland; they have to play Argentina still, and
Right.
those aren't gonna be cupcake wins for them, right?
Uh-huh.
Or cupcake draws for them. So if Saudi can have one win and one draw, they're in a really good position to move on.
Hmm. What do you think, OC?
Yeah, they basically control the group right now. So depending on how they play these next 2 games, like they can either show out like they did against Argentina and be on top of the group,
Hmm.
or they can just kick it into second gear and just kind of coast it.
Hmm.
But then I'm interested to see, is Argentina going to come out pissed off
Hmm.
and try to lay the hammer down on Mexico, or is this the downfall of Argentina?
So is it
That
Argentina Mexico Saturday?
yes.
Yeah, that's the next game coming up for Mexico, or in Argentina. And then I was actually kind of looking at the squad, paying a little bit more attention to what kind of squad Argentina took. They're not all that solid in the back, right? Like, I mean, they took Nicolas Otamendi, who's been on the decline in his career for the past couple years, and they still took him. I feel like Argentina has better defenders to their disposal than some of the guys that they took. I guess they went for experience over talent. Do you guys think?
Sometimes like Belgium proved it today. Experience was a little bit better than talent,
Mm.
but maybe not in that case. Maybe Argentina mix it up a little bit against Mexico.
What do you think, OC? You think they're going to change the lineup a little bit?
I mean, I think they could, and they talked to Messi about that, like that, and he said himself like this group hasn't felt a loss like this in a while because they had won like 36 straight like
Yeah.
national games or
Hmm.
in a row, and so maybe this is their wake up call, and like you said, maybe the experience kind of played a factor into it because it's a little bit of the older guys that
Right.
maybe can't move as fast, but
Hmm.
maybe they do make that switch against Mexico because they know they have to win. Like they're not gonna take anybody for granted like they did the Saudis, or
Mm,
like I said, or it could be either that they're on the decline, like this is it for them, like
mm-hmm.
this is their downfall.
Right. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about USA and how they too they could have easily won their first game of the World Cup, but I mean they got the draw. They got some sort of result. If it wasn't for the PK and Gareth Bale taking advantage of his PK,
Mhm.
um, which that one was pretty clear penalty. I mean I don't think there's any arguing that one. He kind of just
No.
swept Gareth's legs out from under him, and I mean it's also let's take away the way. Gareth was able to just hammer his penalty instead of trying to do anything fancy. He just blasted it in the top corner, and I think the keeper even had a hand on it, and it still
Yeah.
got through. Um, what do you guys think about USA? Do you think kind of a disappointing second half because they were so dominant the first half?
Oh, for sure.
Mm,
I think it. I think the tie is a big disappointment.
mm,
A big slip up there for the penalty, and you could easily say, they did enough to get the win, but despite the penalty, uh, but you watched that first half, and they just dominated on all aspects. They controlled
mm,
possession. They had plenty of opportunities, a lot of shots. And then the second half of the second half. So what the last quarter of the game,
right.
it was all Wales, and U.S. had to go into this defense mode, and it's extremely disappointing. And kind of what was like hilarious but also disappointing is all these subs come in from Wales, and they're talking about how these guys are playing in like the fifth league in England. It's
Right.
like Jesus Christ, you guys
Yeah.
can't score one more goal.
Mm,
They got so like a bunch of these scrubs, these younger guys playing, and they couldn't do a whole lot.
mm,
What was pretty disappointing, um, they are terrible on set pieces, mainly because they have no height. It
right.
looks kind of like a Mexican team out there, right? When Mexico has to play like all these corners short, that's
Hey
what
man,
they had to do.
I feel like Mexico has a little bit more height. Don't let me taking the height away from
I don't think
Mexico.
that they're taller than the U.S. team. But I think all in all, you got a point. It's a tie, but at the same time, I think it's a loss.
What do you think, OC?
Yeah, I think it was very disappointing for them, considering how much they put pressure on Wales in that first half, and all the chances they created, and only to come out with one goal. Um, yeah, and like Drew said, that last 15, 20 minutes of the game was where it kind of just like flipped, and you had USA looking like they were on their heels just trying to survive.
Right.
And it was completely different game from what you seen like the first 60 minutes of the game. So that was pretty sad to see, because like you seen like how hard these guys were trying. It's kind of like Canada today, all those chances
Right.
they had, and
Yeah.
nothing was falling through, and it just shows you like the margin of error,
Mm-hmm.
like on the world stage, is so small. Like
Hmm.
even like the tiniest mistake um, can just cost you, and that's like you see the PK call, and the commentators I listened to today, they were talking about how like back then when they played, like they just had to worry about playing the game right, like just play the game right. But now these players have to worry about playing against VAR as well, because
Right.
they even if like you stick your hand out, it's gonna get reviewed, and it's probably gonna be a penalty. So now you're playing not only your opponent slash the game, now you're playing VAR as well. You can't hide anymore.
That's a good point. There's really nothing to hide anymore. There's no you're really getting exposed as a player, especially when you make a mistake, right? Because before if like today, like the game against Belgium, the penalty that was awarded to Canada with Carrasco when it hit his hand, he could have easily gotten away with it, right? And
Hmm.
Yeah.
if it wasn't for VAR, because it was so fast and it was such a he just stuck his hand out just a little bit, but it was enough. Um, Now, I don't want to put the blame all on one player because I mean I feel like on Mexico, Canada, and USA, I feel like every single player played their hearts out for this first game. But I kind of want to talk a little bit about Pulisic, especially in the second half. Um, there was opportunities that he had where he could have taken defenders one on one and he could have made a play and just didn't have any confidence. Do you guys think maybe there was a little bit more he could have given?
Um, Yes and no. Um, I he's not getting a lot of playing time right now with Chelsea,
Right.
so he doesn't. I don't think he's got the legs under him, well, like a lot of these other guys are. They
Mm-hmm.
talked about it in the Belgium game, right? They pulled
Mm-hmm.
Hazard at like the 60th minute, and they basically said like you want Hazard out there, but he's not playing for Madrid. So
Mm-hmm.
he's not in a full mode to play all 90 minutes, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, I do expect a lot out of Pulisic. He's supposed to be the best player on the U.S. team, and you want the best player to rise
Mm-hmm.
when the time comes. Um, but then again, you know, Pulisic, he's not an A player in the world, right? He's not an elite player. He is a little bit better than average. So I'm not shocked to not see him take over in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
I would love it, but I'm not shocked by it.
Mm-hmm. What about you, OC? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you're the captain for a reason, right? You're supposed to
Right.
be the best player on your team and sometimes on the field, depending on who you're playing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I look at other captains. You see, like today, for example, Kevin De Bruyne. There's a point where he was getting so mad that he's yelling at his teammates. Let's put
Mm-hmm.
pressure on, move up. Like they're playing so far back, and
Mm-hmm.
I I don't really see that from Pulisic. He was just kind of, especially in that second half. It's like he scaled back. Like you said, he
Right.
didn't take chances. He had opportunities to win one on ones, and he kind of just like passed it off, and just kind of sailed back. And
Mm-hmm.
so, if you're the captain, you're going to be the best player, especially for your nation. Be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're there for. So
Right. Like
that's how.
you gotta be a guy who's gonna take that pressure head on, right, and
Yeah.
just have the confidence, at least be confident enough to give it a shot, right? Because I feel
Mhm.
like he kind of played a little bit more timid. Um, let's go. I mean, there were games that weren't surprising. England, did their thing. Who else? Spain, they did their
Spain.
thing. Drew, I think you brought up a team earlier. I forgot which team it was, but they did their thing where they went in and dominated their game. What
France.
France?
I didn't say it earlier,
France.
but France did their thing.
Oh,
That was what the big three, right? England,
right.
France, and Spain were the really so far the only ones that are doing
Mm-hmm.
what they're supposed to be doing.
Right.
I think France is a big shocker to me. How well that they played without Pogba, without Conte, without Benzema. They looked still like they were a dominant force in the world. I mean, Australia's not great, but they still played really well.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, outside of Costa Rica, I think Australia is probably the worst team we've seen so far perform at the
Qatar,
World Cup.
Ecuador, both pretty bad.
Okay, yeah, I'll give you that. I think they were both pretty bad. Um, but let's go ahead. Let's talk about the last upset or another big upset that happened this week, and that was Japan over Germany, and the saves that the goalkeeper had, especially there in the second half when Germany, I mean, was trying just about anything to make it go through. Are you guys surprised with that result, or we should give Japan a little bit more credit?
Um, I'm surprised. I think it's funny. I think Nick sent us a picture that talked about how everyone was panicking when the U.S. wasn't able to beat Saudi Arabia and they weren't able to beat Japan recently in some
Mm-hmm.
friendlies, and then wouldn't you know, Japan knocks off Germany and Saudi Arabia knocks off Argentina, and so
Right.
it's like okay, you can breathe a little bit that these teams
Mm-hmm.
are actually playing pretty well. Um, yeah, Germany's supposed to be an elite team. You're
Mm-hmm.
not supposed to lose that game to Japan. And even though Japan paid well, you expect a loaded German team to do better
Mm-hmm.
than what they did. So yeah, I think it's a shocker. It's a huge shocker, and it mixes up a lot in that group.
What do you think, OC?
Yeah, for sure. Because you look at the quality of players that Germany has, right, and they're playing in their top leagues, and so you kind of think like, oh well, it should be pretty much a cakewalk. But
Mm-hmm.
like some of these teams, like Saudi Arabia, Japan, um, they come and play. Like
Mm-hmm.
they might not have the names, but maybe they have the chemistry and they have that little fire within them that's gonna,
Right.
you're on the world stage and you want to show out, right? Because everyone's looking down upon you like, oh yeah, you should get dog walked right now, like this
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't even be close. And maybe some of these teams are coming in way too comfortable, like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
we got all these guys that play in the Premier League or in the German league or in the
Mm-hmm.
Bundesliga, right?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we should walk all over your domestic league, whatever you have in Japan. And to their credit, like these guys are doing what they have to do to
Mm-hmm.
show out.
Do you guys think maybe expectations have something to do with it? When you have all the expectations in the world, it kind of weighs you down a little bit, and when you have no expectations, you could kind of play carefree and kind of just go balls to the wall, all out.
Maybe a little bit, but
Uh-huh.
um, at the same time, I mean, you look at this German team, how successful they are as a country, and how successful these guys are on their club teams.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think too many of them feel a lot of pressure. I think OC kind of hit the nail on the head. I think teams like Saudi Arabia, teams like Japan, they just come out balls out. They just come out hungry, looking
Mm-hmm.
to upset someone, and it's just like getting smacked in the face right away.
Right. Now, I want to ask you guys this: looking at both upsets, with Germany and Argentina, which team do you guys think is going to have the biggest trouble in their group? Because Germany still has Spain and Costa Rica in their group, and then of course, Argentina have Mexico and Poland left. Who do you guys think is going to has a better chance of advancing?
I think, despite them still having to play Spain, I think Germany
Uh-huh.
probably has a better chance. They only lost by 1 goal, and Costa Rica just got destroyed by Spain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm gonna say Germany has a better chance, just because I think Argentina, or I'm sorry, Mexico and Poland are a little bit more competition for Argentina.
What do you think,
But
OC?
I think either
Oh, go
way,
ahead.
the road's going to be a little bit difficult.
Uh-huh. What do you think, OC?
Yeah, after seeing what Spain did today, I'd say that Germany has a tougher road. So I'd say Argentina would be the easier, not the easier, but I see them moving on before
Mm-hmm.
Germany does.
Yeah, I
Just
mean,
because I mean it's not they don't have Spain in their group, so
right.
and I just feel like they're gonna come out pissed off after
Mm-hmm.
being the embarrassment of the world right now. So.
Right. I feel because Argentina can still come out and run the table, even though they have not easy teams to play against, Poland and Mexico. But I mean, with those two teams, any mistake can can get Argentina ahead of the group. But with Germany and Spain being as dominant as they are, and then Japan not gonna probably roll over to anybody, right? Like I mean, because if Japan gets another win, say they beat Costa Rica, and then they're in the driver's seat
Yeah, then
if they can
Germany
hold
needs to
off
win
Spain,
out.
right? Exactly. Um, so we'll see. We'll see how this develops. We'll see how the rest of the week develops. It's definitely going to be very interesting to see, especially when we still got some superstars that are playing tomorrow on Thanksgiving Day. It's going to be awesome. Anything else you guys want to bring up before we move on?
What's the spread, OC? U.S. and England. What are the odds? What are we looking at?
Surprisingly, they're only favored by 2 goals on Friday.
Mm,
I think
Some of these,
that's a pretty big. That's a pretty big.
some of these. No, I think it's too low.
You think England's
Uh,
gonna bounce U.S. by more than 2 goals?
I think England should scrape the U.S. on Friday.
They
you
should,
think so?
but will they?
I don't know. Okay, hold on. It's down to 1 goal, -1 goal for England.
Okay, then I would probably take. I would bet on
I
England there.
I will be on that, sir.
I
Hold
mean,
on, let's look at the Saudi Arabia or Poland is a half goal / a goal favorite over Saudi Arabia.
interesting.
The way the Saudis played, I wouldn't bet against them against
I'm
Poland.
I'm taking the Saudis after what they did.
But I mean, you
Um,
also got to take into consideration, right? Like of how much they empty the tank with these teams, right? And watching U.S., they don't have that much depth, and watching them have heavy legs at the end of the game, you think it's a little bit harder for them to recover when England has probably the most depth in any squad in the world, other than probably Brazil. You guys think U.S. actually has a chance?
I think they have a chance to tie, and I think that because this is somewhat of a rivalry game, right, between our two countries. Their last meeting in the World Cup was a draw,
Right.
and that England team was pretty stacked then. So I'm gonna say yeah. I think a win for them is a tie.
No, I think so too, for sure. Because then you get another point. What do you think, OC?
I think they're gonna get scraped.
Uh,
I'm just being honest because this like I usually talk trash about England, but after watching what they did in the Euros last year, right? Where I mean they lost in PKs to Italy, and then just seeing what they did in their first game, like I just feel like they got things clicking. You know, I still feel like the U.S. will put up a fight, but I think at the end of the day, they still win by like at least 2 goals.
right. I think,
So
and I
so it's
think,
coming home. OC saying that's how much he likes them right now.
Yeah, I mean I picked them to make the final, but
we'll see.
man, it's just I'm really excited to watch that game though.
It's going to be an interesting game. The only thing that does kind of concern me is England's attack and how they're kind of gelling right now. How Harry Kane's dropping deep and how Sterling is playing, and they even got Jack Grealish scoring goals, Rashford scoring goals. It's just like I feel like especially with these 5 subs that they're able to make during the game, I feel like it might be a little bit too much for the U.S. defenders when you're taking on probably the top attacking players in the world right now, right? Especially guys like Sterling and Kane, and then you got to worry about Grealish and Saka. It's going to be a lot of running around for them, and I feel like it's probably going to be overwhelming for the U.S.